It was a cold December evening in 2024 when Thomas Mitchell, the chief technician at the Metropolitan Opera House, was conducting his routine inspection of the performance hall before closing the building for the winter holidays. After 30 years of working in this cathedral of American culture, Thomas believed he knew every corner, every secret of this historic institution. But what he was about to discover that evening, hidden in a secret compartment beneath the orchestra pit, would forever change his understanding of the boundaries between reality and the impossible. The Metropolitan Opera was preparing to close its season with the traditional New Year's Gala performance, but spirits were still shadowed by the memory of the greatest mystery in its recent history. 4 years earlier, in December 2020, Isabella Crawford, the principal ballerina of American Ballet Theater, had vanished without a trace, just 1 hour before the premiere of Swan Lake, the most anticipated performance of the year. Isabella was no ordinary ballerina. At just 26 years old, she was considered one of the most talented artists of her generation, not just in America, but throughout the entire world. A graduate with honors from the Juilliard School, then perfected at the Paris Opera Ballet School, Isabella had earned her reputation through performances of an emotional intensity that left audiences breathless. But what made her truly unique wasn't just her exceptional technical abilities, but also the legend of her dancing shoes. Isabella always danced in the same pair of ballet slippers, shoes that seemed to glow with a subtle golden light when she moved on stage. Arts critics wrote about the golden magic that seemed to emanate from her movements, and photographers couldn't explain why their cameras captured that ethereal glow that surrounded her feet during performances. The story of these extraordinary shoes began 4 years before Isabella's disappearance, when she was just 22 years old and still a young ballerina full of dreams, but without a principal role. In an autumn filled with professional frustrations, when it seemed her talent wasn't being recognized by the company management, Isabella had received an unexpected visit. An elegant elderly woman, who introduced herself only as Mrs. Elizabeth, had come to the basement rehearsal rooms of Lincoln Center, where Isabella spent hours repeating step by step the perfection she dreamed of. The stranger seemed to know everything about the young ballerina's dreams and aspirations, and in her hand she carried a black velvet box containing the most beautiful ballet shoes Isabella had ever seen. "These are not ordinary shoes," the old woman had told her with a voice that seemed to resonate from the depths of time. "They were made by an Italian master in 1890 for the greatest ballerina of her era, but she never had time to wear them. Now, after more than a century, they wait to find the right feet, the feet of a true artist who can give them life." The shoes were indeed extraordinary. Made from the finest quality natural silk, they seemed to absorb and reflect light in a way that defied any explanation. Nearly invisible stitching created intricate patterns on their surface that reminded one of constellations, and the soles were reinforced with a material that no ballet shoe expert had ever been able to identify. "They are yours," Mrs. Elizabeth had said, "but you must understand that they come with a responsibility. Any ballerina who wears them becomes connected to a tradition that transcends time and space. Your dance will not be just for the audience in the theater, but for all the spirits of art that have existed before you and that will exist after you." Isabella had received the shoes with profound reverence, somehow sensing that her life had just changed in a fundamental way. When she put on the shoes for the first time and began to dance, the transformation was instantaneous and spectacular. Her movements gained a fluidity and grace that seemed to defy the laws of gravity. Her leaps extended in the air for seconds longer than should have been physically possible, and her pirouettes seemed to create whirlwinds of light around her. From that day, Isabella's career experienced a meteoric rise. Within 6 months, she became the company's principal ballerina, and within 2 years, she was being invited to dance on the most prestigious stages in Europe. International critics compared her to the historical legends of ballet, Anna Pavlova, Maya Plisetskaya, Margot Fonteyn, but all admitted that Isabella brought something completely new to the art of dance. Her performances at the Metropolitan Opera became social events of extraordinary importance. Tickets sold out within hours of going on sale, and on performance nights the entire cultural and political elite of New York gathered in the opulent halls of the Met. Presidents, prime ministers, ambassadors, and business moguls came to see the ballerina with the golden shoes, as she had become known in the American and international press. But with fame came mystery. Isabella became increasingly reserved and introspective. Her colleagues in the ballet company observed that she spent more and more time alone, rehearsing in the basement rooms of Lincoln Center until the early hours of the morning. Sometimes employees working the night shift reported hearing music echoing through the empty corridors of the building, even though all audio systems were turned off. Even stranger, night security guards swore they had seen Isabella dancing on the main stage in the middle of the night, even though all doors were locked and alarm systems registered no sign of intrusion. When asked about these incidents, Isabella neither denied nor confirmed, responding only with an enigmatic smile. A few weeks before the December 2020 performance, Isabella's behavior became even more mysterious. She spoke often about preparing for something very important and mentioned that the shoes were showing her extraordinary things. Her close friends reported that Isabella seemed to have very vivid dreams about places and times she couldn't describe with ordinary words. "It's as if the shoes take me to parallel worlds," she had told Sarah Martinez, her closest friend in the ballet company. "I see choreographies that have never been created, hear music that has never been composed, dance with partners who are not from our time." The evening before the December 15th, 2020 performance, Isabella had prepared with her usual ritual. She was in her basement room, meditating and repeating sequences from Swan Lake. The last person to see her was master choreographer Viktor Petrov, around 6 p.m., when he left to have dinner before the performance. She seemed more luminous than ever, Viktor recalls. "I had the impression that her entire body emanated an energy I had never seen before. She told me she felt ready for the final transformation, and that night's performance was going to be the most important of her life." When the technical crew came to prepare the stage for the 7:30 p.m. performance, Isabella had vanished without a trace. Her room was perfectly organized. All costumes were carefully prepared, but there was no sign of her. The most disturbing aspect was that her golden shoes were also missing, although no one had seen her leaving the building. The police investigation that followed was exhaustive but fruitless. All surveillance cameras at the Met and on surrounding streets were analyzed, but there was no recording of Isabella leaving the building after 6 p.m. All doors and windows were locked from the inside, and alarm systems recorded no suspicious activity. Even more bizarre, analysis of the surveillance cameras from the basement room where Isabella had been rehearsing showed images that seemed to defy logic. In the last recorded minutes around 6:45 p.m., Isabella could be seen dancing with a grace and speed that seemed superhuman. Her movements became increasingly rapid and fluid, until the image began to fade, as if she were gradually dissolving into air. Video technology experts called to analyze the recordings declared that there were no signs of digital manipulation, but that the observed phenomenon was incompatible with known laws of physics. The image ended abruptly at 6:47 p.m., when Isabella seemed to disappear completely, leaving behind only a golden glow that persisted for a few seconds before it too faded away. That evening's performance was canceled, of course, and the Met entered a period of artistic mourning. Without Isabella, the ballet company seemed to have lost not only its principal dancer, but also the spirit that animated it. Attempts to find a replacement were all failures. No ballerina seemed able to capture that unique magic that Isabella brought to the stage. Isabella's family, parents Robert and Margaret Crawford from Boston, never gave up searching for answers. Robert, a physics professor at MIT, became obsessed with the scientific aspects of his daughter's disappearance. He spent hours in the laboratory trying to reproduce the conditions that might explain the dissolution phenomenon observed in the surveillance cameras. "I know it sounds crazy," he told his colleagues, "but all the data indicates that Isabella experienced some form of dimensional transport. The golden energy observed in her shoes suggested an interaction with physical forces we don't yet understand." Margaret, on the other hand, researched obsessively the history of the mysterious shoes. She spent months in the archives of the opera houses in Rome, Milan, and Paris, searching for information about the Italian master who supposedly created the shoes in 1890. What she discovered was even more mysterious than she had expected. The master was named Giuseppe Benedetti, and had indeed been one of the most renowned creators of ballet shoes in the 19th century. But Giuseppe was not a simple craftsman. He was also known as an alchemist and student of the occult sciences. His journals, preserved in the private archives of the Benedetti family, described experiments with aurifying materials and techniques for infusing spiritual energy into material objects. According to these journals, Giuseppe had spent the last 10 years of his life creating a single pair of shoes for a specific ballerina, Caterina Rossi, considered the greatest artist of her era, But Katerina had died in a travel accident 1 week before the premiere for which the shoes had been created. Giuseppe was devastated and swore that the shoes would remain in his family's possession until they found the right spirit to activate their power. These shoes, Giuseppe had written in his last journal, are not just footwear. They are a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, a vehicle through which pure art can transcend material limitations. The ballerina who wears them with true understanding will discover that dance can open doors to dimensions where beauty and perfection are the fundamental reality. The Benedetti family kept the shoes for 100 years, passing them down from generation to generation like a sacred relic. The last descendant, Lorenzo Benedetti, died in 1990 without direct heirs. His estate, including the mysterious shoes, was donated to a charitable organization that sponsored performing arts in Eastern Europe. Following this trail, Margaret discovered that the charitable organization was actually a front for an occult group of collectors of magical artifacts based in Venice. The group was called Cerchio dell'Eterno, Circle of the Eternal, and was composed of European aristocrats, eccentric scientists, and artists who believed in the power of certain objects to transcend normal reality. Margaret's research led her to a secret villa on a private island in the Venetian lagoon, where an extraordinary library of manuscripts and objects considered cursed with supernatural powers was kept. There she met Count Alessandro di Monteverdi, the last living president of Cerchio dell'Eterno. The Benedetti shoes, the Count told her with profound solemnity, were sent into the world to find the being who can use them for their true purpose. That being is not one who would wear them for fame or money, but one who would understand that dance can be a form of magic, a path to other planes of existence. The Count explained that his organization had carefully monitored Isabella's career from the moment she received the shoes. Mrs. Elizabeth was one of their agents, a former ballerina from Austria, who had spent 50 years searching for the right person to wear the shoes. Isabella Crawford, the Count continued, was chosen not because she was the most technically talented ballerina, but because she had something much rarer, the spiritual purity necessary to access the shoes' powers without being corrupted by them. But what we didn't expect was that she would progress so rapidly in her dimensional development. By dimensional development, the Count referred to Isabella's ability to use dance as a means of transport to parallel realities. According to the philosophy of Cerchio dell'Eterno, the universe was composed of multiple layers of reality, and through certain techniques, dance being one of them, a spiritually prepared person could pass from one layer to another. The Benedetti shoes, the Count explained, function as a catalyst for this passage, but the process is irreversible for those who reach a certain level of mastery. Isabella reached the point where she was more connected to the spiritual dimension of art than to the physical world. On the night of her disappearance, she made the final transition. Margaret asked with a trembling voice, "Does that mean my daughter is dead?" "Not in the sense you understand," the Count replied gently. "She lives, but in a form of existence that the human mind cannot fully conceive. She has become part of eternal art, a spirit of pure beauty that exists in all dimensions simultaneously. Through her dance, she now inspires and guides other artists around the world, though they are unaware of her presence." These revelations could have been dismissed as the fantasies of eccentric collectors, but the events that followed in the next 4 years provided disturbing evidence that something extraordinary had indeed happened to Isabella. First, ballet companies around the world began reporting unexplained phenomena. Dancers on all continents described dreams in which a young woman with golden shoes taught them choreographies of stunning beauty. Some of the most talented contemporary artists admitted that their moments of supreme inspiration came after dreams featuring the Golden Woman. At Teatro alla Scala in Milan, at the Opera de Paris, at the Bolshoi in Moscow, and at the Royal Opera House in London, critics observed a renaissance of choreographic art in the last 4 years. Performances became more moving, more spiritual, as if dancers had gained access to a source of inspiration that transcended pure technique. Second, inexplicable phenomena continued to occur at the Metropolitan Opera. Although the ballet company struggled due to the lack of a principal ballerina of Isabella's caliber, the building itself seemed to have gained a new energy. Musicians reported that their instruments sounded better in the hall, actors discovered that their voices had richer resonance, and audiences left performances with the sensation they had experienced something magical. Most frequently, night security guards continued to report the presence of an ethereal figure dancing on the main stage after midnight. This figure was translucent and seemed not to touch the floor at all, floating in patterns of superhuman grace. When special infrared surveillance cameras were installed, they captured disturbing images, forms of light dancing in patterns that seemed to follow music inaudible to the human ear. Dr. Michael Harrison, a physicist from Columbia University, was called to investigate these phenomena. His analysis revealed that the Met's main hall emitted energy fields of unusual intensity, with rhythmic fluctuations that corresponded exactly to ballet music tempos. What we observe here, Dr. Harrison explained in a confidential report, appears to be a form of dimensional resonance. It's as if an external energy vibrates in perfect synchronism with frequencies specific to performing arts. This energy seems to amplify the artistic capabilities of anyone performing in this space. But the most convincing evidence that Isabella continued to exist in some form came from the direct experiences of those who loved her. Her parents reported recurring dreams in which Isabella appeared to them, not as a sad memory, but as a luminous and happy presence who assured them she was well and continued to dance in a world of perfect beauty. Sarah Martinez, her closest friend, became one of the most reputed ballet teachers in America, inspired by techniques she claimed to have learned in dreams from Isabella. "She shows me combinations that defy any ballet manual," Sarah explained. "They are movements that seem to ignore gravity and create the sensation that the dancer is floating. When I teach them to my students, they all feel they are accessing something magical." Viktor Petrov, the master choreographer, stopped working on conventional performances after Isabella's disappearance. Instead, he created a new form of performance art he called dimensional ballet, in which dancers were encouraged to meditate and open themselves to inspiration from non-terrestrial sources. His performances became international sensations, considered by critics to be a revolution in choreographic art. "Isabella showed me that dance can be much more than physical movement," Victor explained. "It can be a prayer, a meditation, a communication with aspects of reality we usually don't perceive. All my work now is inspired by the lessons I receive from her in dreams and in moments of deep contemplation." And now, after 4 years of mystery and unanswered questions, Thomas Mitchell found himself face to face with what appeared to be the first concrete physical evidence of what had happened to Isabella. On that cold December evening in 2024, Thomas was making his final inspection before closing for winter vacation. It was a routine he had followed thousands of times, checking that all lights were off, all doors were locked, and that alarm systems were functioning properly. But when he reached the orchestra pit, the space located beneath the stage where musicians placed their instruments, he noticed something that had never been there before. In the darkest corner of the pit, where instrumentalists usually left cases for violins and cellos, was a compartment Thomas had never seen in his 30 years of working at the Met. It was a small niche, almost hidden under the stairs that descended to the technical room, covered by a wooden panel that seemed to be part of the building's original structure. What caught his attention wasn't the niche itself, but the faint, golden light that filtered through the cracks in the wood. It was the same type of glow that Thomas associated with Isabella's shoes, a light that seemed to have its own substance and pulse with an almost organic rhythm. With his heart beating strongly, Thomas managed to move the wooden panel. Inside, carefully placed on a piece of black velvet, were Isabella's golden shoes, but not as he remembered seeing them last. These seemed to have undergone an extraordinary transformation. The silk material had gained a crystalline transparency, as if it had been made from melted and reformed glass. The stitching, which before formed subtle patterns, now glowed with its own light, drawing on the shoe's surface complex maps of constellations and galaxies. Most extraordinary was that the shoes seemed to float an inch above the velvet, slowly rotating around their vertical axis, emitting harmonious melodies that recalled the music of the spheres. When Thomas approached to examine them more closely, a familiar voice whispered directly in his mind, "Thomas, I'm fine. I've learned to dance among the stars." The voice was unmistakably Isabella's, but it came not from the air, but from within his own consciousness. At the same moment, the entire Met began to fill with music, not through the sound system, which was off, but through the vibrations of the building itself. It was a symphony of painful beauty, a melody that seemed to come from the heart of the universe itself. "My shoes have finally fulfilled the purpose for which they were created," Isabella's voice continued in Thomas's mind. "They have carried me to the supreme dance, the dance that connects all dimensions of beauty. But my mission here is not complete. I need someone to continue the connection between your world and the world where I now live. At that moment, the Met's main hall filled with light. Not electric light, but a golden flow that seemed to pour from the floating shoes and spread throughout the entire building. The walls, seats, the stage itself seemed to absorb this light and retransmit it amplified. Thomas then saw something that made him question everything he believed about the nature of reality. On stage, dancing with a grace that transcended human possibility, was Isabella, not as a memory or a ghost, but as a living, radiant, transfigured presence. Her body seemed to be made of the same crystalline light as her shoes, and her movements created patterns of pure energy in the air. "Thomas," Isabella spoke to him while dancing, "you were the first who believed in me when I was just a young ballerina with big dreams. Now I need you to help me transmit what I have learned. My shoes must remain at the Met, but they will seek the next artist who can wear them. You know what to do." Isabella's dance reached a crescendo of overwhelming intensity. The entire hall vibrated in resonance with her movements, and Thomas felt every cell in his body vibrating in harmony with the universal music he perceived. In that moment of pure ecstasy, he completely understood what his role was in this extraordinary story. When the light faded and the music gradually retreated into silence, Thomas found himself alone again in the orchestra pit. The shoes now rested motionless on the velvet, but their golden glow persisted, pulsing gently like a beating heart. Next to them, he found a letter written in elegant calligraphy on paper that seemed to be woven from rays of light. "Dear Thomas," the letter began, "through you, the story of my shoes will continue. They wait to find the next artist who can transcend the limitations of the physical world through pure art. When that person appears, you will know how to recognize her. She will instinctively understand that the shoes are not just footwear, but keys to dimensions of beauty that humanity only dreams of glimpsing. Until then, the shoes will remain at the Met, transforming this hall into a beacon for all those seeking to connect their art with the divine. Through their energy, every performance that takes place here will be blessed with a radiance that will lift the souls of spectators to spiritual heights. Don't grieve for me, dear friend. I have found what every artist dreams of discovering, the place where art and eternity meet. I now dance in choreographies created by the very forces that move the stars and planets. But through my shoes, an echo of this beauty will remain in your world, inspiring and guiding those who follow the path of the true artist. With all my love from all dimensions, Isabella." In the days that followed this extraordinary revelation, Thomas found himself in the unique position of being the custodian of modern America's greatest artistic secret. He decided to create a secret museum within the Met, accessible only to specified initiates, where Isabella's shoes would be displayed under conditions specially designed to amplify their transformative power. News of the shoes' reappearance spread discreetly through the international artistic community, but not through conventional media channels. The information was transmitted directly to elite ballet schools, prestigious companies, and individual artists who were known for their spiritual dedication to art. The results were remarkable. In the following months, the Metropolitan Opera became the destination of a new form of artistic pilgrimage. Dancers from all continents came to New York, not to see ordinary performances, but to experience the transformative power of the hall that housed Isabella's shoes. Natasha Volkov, principal ballerina of the Mariinsky Theater from St. Petersburg, was one of the first artists to make this pilgrimage. "The moment I stepped on the Met stage," she reported, "I felt I was accessing a source of inspiration I had never experienced before. It was as if every movement I made was guided by a superior intelligence, by an understanding of dance that transcended everything I had learned in school." Dmitry Kozlov, the renowned choreographer from Teatro alla Scala, spent an entire week at the Met, creating what he described as the most spiritual work of my career. "In this hall," he explained, "you don't just dance, you commune with the pure essence of art." Isabella's invisible shoes guide every artist toward understanding that dance can be a form of prayer, a path to the divine. Dr. Elena Kowalski, the renowned art historian from Harvard University, came to New York to study the phenomenon from an academic perspective. After a month of intensive research at the Met, she published a revolutionary monograph titled Beyond Physical Art, The Dimensional Renaissance of Performance, in which she argued that Isabella's shoes represented proof that art could indeed function as a bridge between different planes of existence. What we observe at the Metropolitan Opera, Dr. Kowalski wrote, "Challenges all our traditional concepts about art's limitations. Here performance becomes a form of spiritual science, an empirical exploration of dimensions of consciousness that normally remain inaccessible." Isabella Crawford did not disappear. She evolved toward a form of existence where art and life are synonymous. Isabella's parents, Robert and Margaret, finally found the peace they had sought for 4 years. After Thomas told them about the discovery of the shoes and Isabella's message, they understood that their daughter had not been the victim of a tragedy, but the pioneer of a new form of artistic existence. "I always knew Isabella was destined for something extraordinary," Margaret said with eyes bright with pride and acceptance. "Now I understand that our education as parents was not to prepare her for an ordinary life, but to give her the spiritual foundation necessary for this incredible transformation." Robert, with his physics background, became deeply interested in the scientific implications of Isabella's experience. He began collaborating with Dr. Harrison and international research teams in developing a new field of study they called physics of artistic transcendence. What Isabella achieved, Robert theorized, is proof that consciousness can indeed move between dimensions using specific techniques. Dance, in combination with objects that have been infused with special energies, can serve as vehicles for this transition. This opens incredible possibilities for the future evolution of the human species. Sarah Martinez became the official curator of the secret museum within the Met, designed to preserve and share Isabella's legacy with future generations of artists. She developed a new training methodology for dancers that embraced both technical excellence and spiritual preparation. "Isabella showed me that technical skill becomes truly meaningful only when it serves a spiritual vision," Sarah explained. "Our training program now includes meditation, study of mystical traditions, and developing a deep connection with divine sources of inspiration." The special ballet school founded at the Met in Isabella's memory attracted students from around the world. The curriculum included traditional technique but also philosophical study, spiritual practice, and experiential education designed to prepare students for the possibility that their art could transcend normal boundaries between physical and spiritual realms. The most remarkable among the students was Emily Johnson, an 18-year-old from San Francisco who demonstrated an extraordinary affinity for Isabella's shoes. After just a few lessons in the Met's halls, Emily began to demonstrate abilities that reminded everyone of Isabella's early years. When Emily danced in the presence of the shoes, they began to emit brighter light and play more complex melodies. It was clear she had a special connection with the energy that animated the mysterious footwear. "Emily," Thomas observed, "seems to be next in line to carry forward Isabella's mission. She's not yet ready to wear the shoes. Spiritual preparation takes years, but the potential is unmistakable." During a special ceremony organized on the anniversary of Isabella's disappearance, Emily performed a choreography which she claimed had been taught to her in dreams. The movements were so beautiful and so filled with spiritual power that the entire audience experienced something that could only be described as religious ecstasy. "In moments like this," someone whispered from the audience, "you realize that art can indeed be a revelation of the divine." The golden shoes, maintained in their secret shrine in the heart of the Met, continued to serve as the focal point for an artistic renaissance that was transforming New York into one of the world centers for spiritual art. Hundreds of creators from all disciplines, musicians, painters, poets, actors, came to experience the transformative power of this special place. International critics recognized that something fundamental had changed in the artistic community. Works created at or inspired by the Met demonstrated an emotional and spiritual depth that was rare in contemporary art. It was as if artists around the world had gained access to a wellspring of inspiration that previously was closed. Professor James Morrison from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London observed, "There has been an extraordinary shift in the quality of artistic work globally in the last few years. Works are demonstrating emotional sophistication and spiritual insight that suggest artists are accessing new levels of consciousness. Many of the most impressive pieces trace their inspiration back to experiences in New York. The phenomenon extended beyond just performing arts. Visual artists who visited the Met reported spiritual breakthroughs that transformed their work. Musicians discovered new harmonic relationships that created unprecedented emotional responses in audiences. Writers found themselves channeling narratives of extraordinary beauty and wisdom." Dr. Sarah Chen, a renowned neuroscientist who specialized in studying consciousness, conducted extensive research at the Met, to understand the neurological basis for the transformative experiences reported by visitors. What we're measuring, Dr. Chen reported, are brain activity patterns that are unprecedented in scientific literature. Subjects exposed to the environment at the Met show harmonization of brain waves that suggests consciousness is achieving states that normally require years of intensive meditation practice. It's as if the location itself has become tuned to facilitate transcendent experiences. On a memorable night in February 2025, something extraordinary happened that provided final confirmation about the nature of Isabella's continued existence. Thomas was making his routine security check when the entire Met began to glow with soft golden light. Not just the halls and rooms, but the very structure and foundation of the building seemed to be illuminated from within. On the main stage, clear and vivid, Isabella appeared, not as a spirit or vision, but as a fully manifested presence that interacted with the physical environment. She was wearing her golden shoes, but now these were integrated with her entire being, becoming part of her luminous form. "Thomas," she spoke with a voice that resonated throughout the building, "the time has come for the next phase of the plan. My shoes have awakened the Met to its full potential. Now the entire building is ready to serve as a portal between dimensions of artistic truth." In that moment, Thomas understood that the Metropolitan Opera House itself had become something unprecedented, not just a performance venue, but a living bridge between earthly art and spiritual realms where perfect beauty exists. "From now on," Isabella continued, "every performance in this hall will carry an echo of the eternal. Artists who step on this stage will find that their creativity connects with an infinite source of inspiration. Audiences will leave transformed, carrying in their hearts the memory of perfection." The transformation was indeed complete. In the months that followed, the Metropolitan Opera became recognized worldwide as a site of artistic miracles. Performances held there achieved legendary status, remembered not just for technical excellence, but for the spiritual impact that changed the lives of those who witnessed them. Isabella Crawford's legacy extended far beyond dance. She became a symbol of the possibility that art could transcend normal limitations and achieve direct communion with divine sources of beauty. Her story inspired a new generation of artists who approached creativity as spiritual practice, seeking not fame or commercial success but genuine connection with eternal truths. The golden shoes continued to rest in their secret shrine, watched over by Thomas and a small circle of dedicated guardians. They remained ready for the next artist who would demonstrate the spiritual maturity necessary to carry forward the sacred tradition. But their influence extended throughout the building and beyond, creating ripples of inspiration that reached artists in every corner of the globe. In quiet moments late at night when the Metropolitan Opera House stood empty, security guards could still hear faint echoes of celestial music and see glimpses of golden light dancing through the shadows. These were reminders that in a world where boundaries between physical and spiritual were becoming increasingly permeable, art could indeed be a bridge to transcendent experiences that nourish the soul and elevate consciousness. The story of Isabella Crawford and her golden shoes became a living testament to the power of artistic devotion to overcome the limitations of ordinary reality. At the Metropolitan Opera, transformed through her legacy, art continued to serve its highest purpose, to reveal the divine beauty that exists in the heart of the universe itself. And so, in every performance that took place on this special stage, the echo of Isabella's dance continued to inspire and transform, a reminder that sometimes the greatest achievements came not from refusing to let go of the physical world, but from having the courage to embrace the mysteries that lay beyond it. The golden shoes remained, ready for the next brave soul who dared to dance the pathway to infinity.